What is the name of the gentleman that's operating the system?
Vinicius. Okay, we started. We are online already. Good morning, everybody here from Brazil. And if everybody can hear us well, my name is Bianca Gaspar Guedes. I am here an alumni at the University of São Paulo, studying my third year of law. And today we are here joined with Dr. Emna, Mrs. Angeli, and Mr. Renato Penelope to discuss a little bit about the environment, the management of national forests and public policies, a panel that is dedicated to the discussion of measures taken for environmental preservation in BRICS countries. And today we will start our talk with Mrs. Angeli. She will speak a little bit about her research. And Mrs. Anjali Singh, she is pursuing her PhD study from Banaras Hindu University in the Department of Kayachitska. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, under the Faculty of Medical Sciences. She is also doing her consultation work as a yogic consultant. Today, the topic for our debate, she will be introducing a little bit about natural methods and resources in the management of pre-diabetes mellitus, in which she will cover three sections. The first is about diet, the second is about yoga with its subsections, and the last one is naturopathy. I'm sorry if I pronounced it wrong. Again. I'm sorry, you guys. Did you hear the last part I said? I'm sorry.
Yes.
I just said, Mrs. Anjali, you have the floor. Thank you so much for your presence today.
Thank you, Ms. Goddess, and I'm very delighted to be here at the 7th G BRICS Conference at the University of São Paulo, and I'm very thankful for inviting me here. And you had already said my topic, which is the natural methods and resources in the management of pre-diabetes mellitus. And yes, of course, under this topic, I will cover my three major sections that are useful to reverse the case condition to normal, and these are diet, yoga, and naturopathy. And it was naturopathy. So before I started that, it is essential to understand the background of this disease, because diabetes mellitus is a lifestyle disorder disease which is taking place by performing a sedentary lifestyle, having unhealthy food, stress, and sometimes genetics, and it has occurred to the deficiency of insulin and resistance to insulin, commonly known as sugar for layman languages. So it is a metabolic disorder that plays a vital role in making the cause of other diseases like retinopathy, neuropathy, and heart attack, stroke, etc. So along with the medications, other alternative natural resources are really important to control and reverse this condition. And with the help of this lecture, we will all understand how anyone can understand the initial stage of diabetes mellitus through symptoms and screening. The initial stage has known by pre-diabetic by using the following natural combined ways that will be discussed later, second part by me. Anyone can make his life comparatively healthy from those who are only dependent on medicines. So now we know that what is mellitus, diabetes mellitus. So it is a metabolic disorder that is occurred to the insufficiency of insulin or resistance to insulin. It is an hormone based problem which is secreted by pancreatic cells known as beta cells. This insulin molecules attach to glucose molecules, and insulin receptor site cells recognize this insulin and allowing glucose to pass through and become absorbed by cells as a way of energy. So, but the too much glucose in our body, it's over a long period of time can damage in the body, like as a hyperglycemic, and this is now the diabetes comes in the picture. So after this understanding of background, let's discuss about its type. So diabetes mellitus has three types. Those are type 1, type 2, and gestational type. And nowadays, one more type is used by people as a pre-diabetic. So start with a type 1 because when the body secrete less quantity of insulin and the immune system vanishes the beta cells, this is known as type 1. Generally, this type attends in children and young adults, and this term is also known as insulin dependent or juvenile diabetes. Now come on type 2 diabetes, which is popular type of diabetes because most of people suffer from it due to resistance of insulin. And the last one is the gestational diabetes type. It occurs in the pregnancy period and has reverse after the delivery. But however, the gestational diabetes has a prone to developing type 2 diabetes. So pre-diabetic is an intermediate condition of hyperglycemic phenotype and is a major risk factor for diabetes, cardiovascular, and the other disease as well. So the pre-diabetes affected 13.1% of the population per thousand every year. So it is really very important. So we all need to take prompt action for it. So Ayurvedically, pre-diabetes is said to be a prameha, and it is a gray area between the regular blood sugar and the diabetes level. So it had the various name as well, like chemical diabetes, borderline diabetes, and the touch of diabetes. So pre-diabetes is a primary alert condition when lifestyle needs changes, diet changes, and the other approaches can help to prevent developing diabetes illness. So here I would like to quote a very well said word, knowing your problem is a pathway to a solution. If I just merge this with the analogically, it is working knowing the first condition of your diabetes condition and its cause and means can be imperative path for your cure. Qualitative many symptoms could be observed for diabetic conditions broadly written in Ayurvedic and modern sciences as per polyuria, polydipsia, polyphagia, numbness in hands and feet, burning sensations in hands and feet, excessive sweating, laziness, flabbiness of body, dryness in mouth. So these are the symptoms that have occurred. Further that, we can go for the blood test for an accurate way to knowing the glucose level in the body. So here I also want to tell some short view about its test. A fasting blood test means a break from meal or drink except what test has done in the morning without eating anything, and after 2 hours a second postprandial blood test has done after a meal, and the fasting glucose level will be between 101 to 125 and 140 to 200 taken after the meal. It means then the person is in the under the condition of pre-diabetic range. So if that the person has that this range, so it is really important to take the hemoglobin A1C test is the latest form of blood test is to assess the average of the last 3 months level of blood group. So it is important for screening to find out the accurate reports for the pre-diabetic level. So after brief discussing of the background, it is time to flag off main sections of the lecture, which are natural methods for controlling pre-diabetes mellitus. As we all know, the human body has made of 5 elements. Those are earth, water, fire, and space. So Ayurveda believes that if a person follows natural things and rules accurately, then no major problem can happen with any one of them. So these things are majorly responsible. So these things, who follows these things and discipline, a balanced diet, close touch of nature, and good thoughts for oneself and others can make a person's life perfect. So let's start with the diet. So we all heard about the diet so much. And yes, diet plays a vital role in cure. Having a diet according to a disease, body needs, and age is like a boon. The right diet at the right time and in the right quantity makes health good. Same with the pre-diabetic patients. Appropriate choice of food can help reverse diabetic conditions. Pre-diabetic conditions should not be devoid of any meal of the day. So eating with awareness is an imperative key for pre-diabetic patients. A lower glycemic index-based product like pulses, whole meal millets, etc. is a beneficial for controlling sugar levels in the blood. The same with correct timing of having a meal without skipping, and the amount of water are essential terms. So proteins are preferable for diabetic patients. Therefore, vegetables, nuts, fruits, and alkaline-based diet are followed by diabetic patients rather than starchy and sugary is really important. So this is all about the diet section. So after that, let's us know about the yoga and its subsection, because we really also heard lots of about the yoga these days. So yoga is a costless but the most effective way to reduce stress, obesity, and improve the functioning of organs. Because obesity, sedentary lifestyle are the cause of diabetes, and extra fat in the abdominal range and other parts can resist the cells from using glucose from the blood, and these are majorly responsible for diabetes mellitus. So yoga is a more practical way to handle obesity and inactiveness. So at the early stage of pre-diabetic mellitus, perform various recommended yoga asanas that are the helpful to prevent it naturally. If anyone wants to do only one asana to practice, so Surya Namaskar, it for. But should fast-paced Surya Namaskar can be adopted, because slow-paced Surya Namaskar is helpful for mental relaxation. Okay, so after it, different types of asanas can also be beneficial for this condition, like standing asanas like Tadasana, Kati Chakrasana, and Trikonasana. And for sitting asanas are like the Matsyendra Asana, Ardha Matsyendra Asana, Mandukasana, Gomukasana, Paschimottanasana. And for supine asanas are like Sarvangasana, Halasana, and Chakrasana. Prone asanas are like Bhujangasana, Shalabhasana, and Dhanurasana. So according to the body comfort, and you can choose a minimum of 4 to 5 asanas from them for daily practices, at least 10 rounds each. But if possible, do the yoga practices under someone's supervision at least in the beginning to gain the maximum and the accurate result of yogic practice. So let's come on the second subsections of yoga. It is a pranayam. Pranayam is also really very important because it's a breathing pattern to vitalize the energy of the body. It also improves the blockage of nerves and is a natural way to increase the oxygen level in the blood and mind. This limbs of yoga can stimulate the pancreas for better functioning and improve the oxygen level again, so that cells can use glucose properly in a better functioning and improve the oxygen level to and also to control the condition of hyperglycemia. Along with medication as an alternative therapy can use it. So diabetes mellitus can improve their insulin resistance problem with the help of the following pranayam like Nadi Shuddhi, Surya Bhedi, Bhastrika, Brahmari. So these practices in balancing hormones in the body and also improves organ functioning. So one must practice these exercise under the supervision of yoga expert, again I'm saying. And the next sub point is meditation, because many studies have shown that stress is one of the reasons for diabetes mellitus. So meditation is a good practice for mental relaxation and health. Again, yoga is the best practices for reducing stress through the regular practices of breath awareness, Om chanting, and Om meditation. These are recommended for it under the guidance of an expert. So naturopathy. So the last but not least point is naturopathy. Naturopathy is another way to treat diabetes mellitus via natural approaches, because many studies show that the deficiency of vitamin D is one of the cause of diabetes mellitus. With this in mind, the sun bath is a great way to treat diabetes. Sun is a rich natural source of vitamin D and fulfills the deficiency of it. So in the early morning, one who can sit calmly with a gentle smile in front of the sun for 20 minutes has a high chances of decreasing the problem. Apart from sun bath, massage therapy is also really very useful for diabetes, because as we all know, massage helps in good blood circulation and also strengthens the tissues. So in the case of diabetes mellitus, the massage is useful for circulating the blood to control the extra glucose from the blood. So this is all for that. After viewing all the main types of natural methods and resources, I can say in a nutshell, one can improve his quality of life to performing nutritive diet, performing the yoga protocol, and adopting naturopathy can make the high possibility of controlling diabetes mellitus, and also have enough chances to reverse pre-diabetic conditions. Awareness is a very important to know the borderline diabetic stage. Therefore, time to time screening is also a key principle for protection from pre-diabetic conditions. Initial changes in a lifestyle can increase a healthy lifespan. Those natural sources can adopt by anyone who wants to live a happy life instead of all high risk. In an end, we can say natural sources are a boon for good healthy life. And this is all about for my today's lecture. Thank you for your attentive listening. And once again, thank you very much for inviting me here. Thanks a lot for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Anjali. It was a pleasure hearing a lot about the, I don't know if it's new methods, but these methods for treating and trying to deal with diabetes mellitus. I think it's a topic that here in Brazil we have a lot of people that suffer from this disease, and I don't know if we know that much about these types of ways to try to, I don't know if you control it, but to deal with it. I think it's a very I don't know if it's interesting, the right word, but a really a nice way to know that we can try and not do just the typical ways of here in Brazil, which is just going to the doctor and not trying other methods such as the yoga method that you try and not naturology. Sorry again for my pronunciation. And right now, I would like to know if Mrs. Anjali has anything else to say, or if we can, and let me see if we have any doubts here for Mrs. Anjali on our chat. I think right now we don't have it, but if in the end anyone has doubts and questions, I guess Ms. Anjali would like to answer them. And I guess for the start, that's it for our first speech. And Mrs. Anjali, would you like to say anything else, or if it's okay already? For us,
No,
it's
actually,
okay.
it's all about me, and I'm very glad to be here and very delighted. And it's my first time, so I'm a bit nervous, but this time I'm really happy because I guess I successfully delivered all my things.
Yes.
So yeah, thank
Yes.
you. Thanks for giving me this floor and chance. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Anjali. It was well constructed, well divided. It was an amazing speech. Thank you so much. And now, and we will pass on to Dr. Emna. Dr. Emna here today will have a slideshow that we will also transmit it for you. And today, let me just give you a little bit of an introduction about Dr. Emna. And Dr. Emna Mirza is an academician, author, social entrepreneur, curator of ideas. She is an alumni of the Delhi Public School. She has a bachelor's degree from St. Stephen's College, master's degree in political science from Hindu College, and MPhil and PhD from University of Delhi. She is currently working as an associate professor at the Sarojini Naidu Center for Human Studies at the Jamia Millia Islamia University, and she has also been a senior assistant professor of political studies at SPM College at the University of Delhi. Her researches include areas such as foreign affairs, international political economy, globalization, and international relations. She has 8 books to her credit and 30 research papers in peer-reviewed journals, and she has participated in more than 100 conferences at national and international level. So it is a pleasure for us to have Dr. Emna today. And Dr. Emna, the floor is yours. Can I start transmitting your slideshow? And you are muted. Sorry.
Thank
Now
you.
we can
Thank you
hear you.
very much at the outset, Bianca. Thank you so much. And to my very distinguished panelists, my greetings to Anjali, my greetings to Renato, greetings everyone. My greetings to everyone at the BRICS study group of the University of São Paulo. Greetings, namaskar to everyone. The topic that I wish to deliberate amongst you all, that is about, catering to the theme of our session, that is environment, management of national forests and public policies. And while I deliberate on this topic, we're going to be focusing on, that's where my work comes in, reflection from significance of gender perspectives in balancing development and environment. And that's me, myself, Dr. Amna. I'm an academician at India at the Sarojini Center for Women's Studies, Jamia Millia Islamia, and I'm a product. I've studied all throughout at the University of Delhi. Moving forward, next, what is the plan? And our next slide, Bianca, would tell about the plan that we have. That is, we will first try to understand the correlation through, explanation of the concepts. We're going to be looking at gender, environment, security perspective, especially the new security perspective, and the revisions thereof when we look at the global governance. Then we will be also looking at important reports, debates that are going on with reference to the concepts and the processes of gender and development. And most important, that is how gender perspectives can be very useful for practitioners from the BRICS countries to really think that how do we move forward with respect to our resources, with respect to our ecology. So that's the plan that I wish to deliberate amongst you all for the benefit of audience now, and of course later who will be there with us. So Bianca, let's move to the next thing. So here we are. The first that we'll be talking about is let's understand what is gender. And while I was doing the research for this paper, I thought I must take up the concepts from WHO. Now, the World Health Organization defines gender as the norms, the behaviors, the roles associated with perhaps what is a woman, what is a man, a girl, or boy. Gender also refers to relationships with each other. Gender, it is a social construct. Now, we all know that the characteristics, norms, behaviors, roles associated with being a woman, man, girl, or boy, now all of them, they are translated later in the form of a social construct. Gender varies from society to society. And of course, that's the most important part, that it can change over time. That's why there are debates when we talk about diversity and inclusion, when we talk about ecology, when we talk about climate change, when we talk about cybersecurity. Gender is indeed a very important paradigm to navigate through to understand important concerns. So gender, as we understand the norms, the behaviors as a social construct, though it varies from one society to other society, but yes, it is a very important pillar with reference to taking the narrative, to reference to understanding the concepts at large. Moving forward, Bianca, with this, let's understand environment. Now, what do we really mean by environment? Environment is sum total of all living and non-living elements and their effects which influence human life. Now, today, when you and I, Renato, Bianca, Anjali, when we look outside, when we hear about climate change, when we hear about depletion of natural resources, when we hear about so many other things. So environment is no longer just a subset. It is something that impacts all of us. And when I talk about that it impacts all of us, for example, security, which is a key concept in international relations, today, the idea of international security, that is action taken to prevent and deal with conflicts, protect people and their way of life, today security has also transitioned from a traditional military perspective to a non-traditional, non-military understanding. And herein, when we are looking at a non-traditional and a non-military understanding, environment, which is the sum total of all living and non-living elements and their influence upon human life, is indeed very important. BRICS, as we all know, is a very important intergovernmental forum when we talk about international relations, and all countries today are really thinking about how do we augur well for each other's security. For that matter, Anjali, the speaker before me, was aptly pointing about towards, looking at alternative medicine system, alternative healing practices. And of course, today, health is such an important parameter when we talk about the entire global governance landscape. The pandemic showed us that how it is important to really factor in lives and livelihoods, because the pandemic was not just about a virus. It was about patents, it was about medicines, it was about pharmaceuticals, amongst others. Moving forward, Bianca, as I talk about the transitions in international relations in the realm of security, from traditional security to non-traditional security, just a bit of conceptual clarification. By traditional security, I understand threats against the essential values of the state, the territorial integrity, sovereignty. And by traditional security, we are primarily looking at the army, the navy, the defense establishment, the military matters. But let us understand that even in the traditional security, today there are non-traditional security threats. And what are the non-traditional security threats? Where the threats cut across all the borders. For example, human security, climate change, shortage of food and resources. Now, they may be non-military threats. For example, technology. Today, can any country think about a stable military establishment without looking at drones and artificial intelligence? Today, can any nation think about right mechanisms of food and resources without factoring in agriculture 4.0 and looking at new avenues to diversify agriculture? So security, it is one of the key concept in international relations. And this key concept in international relations has indeed come a long way. It is just not the realist, perhaps what Hans Morgan Thau and the literature of Kenneth Waltz, amongst others, told us, the realist and the neo-realist perspective. It is just not about military. No doubt the state is one of the most important pillars of international governance. But within that pillar, there are non-state actors equally. No doubt international security, it is supreme. Military establishment is supreme. But even within that, one cannot ignore the rising importance of the non-traditional security. And when I talk about non-traditional security, environment, our ecology, our national forests, our resources are indeed very important. And the threats they are witnessing, it's just not about them, but it is equally about the bigger question of governance. And the threats cut across the borders. Bianca, let's move forward. Now, when I talk about climate change, just to address the issue better, climate change, it signifies long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns. Now, I present to you to make my argument further. The Climate Change 2023 Synthesis Report that was there on 20th March 2023, and it is from unep.org, because as a researcher, I'm very honest with my resources, with my literature review, so I always present my resource review. Now, when I talk about climate change report, the 2023 report, the synthesis reports, now there are some startling observations from there. Let's read through that. It reiterates that humans are responsible for global healing over the past 200 years, leading to a current temperature rise of 1.1 degree above pre-industrial levels, which has led to a more frequent and hazardous weather events that have caused increasing destruction to people and the planet. So again, the anthropogenic idea that human beings have always existed in interface with the environment. But sadly, the approach of human beings to control, to dominate the environment has led to huge cost for the ecology. And something of a similar kind, the idea of an anthropogenic approach, is also put forward by the gender narrative, that the idea of essentialism, that a society moves with male domination upon the women. Now, we are all distinct biologically, but sadly, how the narrative has been put forward, it has been based on domination, control, and just like environment, which is like a global commons, which is like a public good, because it belongs to all, the responsibility for destruction, sadly, belongs to none. Moving forward, Bianca, elaborating further from the entire debate, the next part is we're going to be looking at gender and development. Now, today, when we look at natural resources, the forest, when we look at livelihoods, there are important concerns in several areas. For example, it is said that when we talk about access to natural resources, farming, when we talk about pastoral lands, when we talk about multiple activities, not only in the agriculture, but also in the related manufacturing industry, in the transition from raw material to heavy industries and cheap labor, there are important concerns. And what are they? Namely, that it is male dominated. There is this idea of men's access and use of forest resources is prioritized, or perhaps the very idea of a gender blind approach with respect to the contributions women make with respect to the access of natural resources. But when it actually comes to the produce from the natural resources, sadly, the concerns of the women of the household are bypassed. And this has again ignored the very strong, the intimate interface of environment with gender. Now, please allow me to clarify here. When I talk about gender and when I talk about development, it is not just about women. It is equally about addressing issues of egalitarianism for the men. Gender is just not a narrative of male bashing. Gender approach is talking about inclusion. It is talking about respecting diversity. And above all, it is talking about sustainability, an approach which factors in towards the cycle of sustainable development. We all know development signifies a transition towards growth, towards better profits, towards better infrastructure. Development signifies a change. In any change in any country, be it a developed or a developing world setup, natural resource management is indeed very important. And sadly, when we look at natural resources, be it the ocean, be it the forest, be it the pines, the idea of men's access, the idea of domination, and above all, gender blind approach is indeed an important concern, wherein we are adding double burdens on the women with respect to not only caregiving and looking after households, but also looking after the work outside and equally burdening the men with the narrative of being the provider. Moving forward, Bianca, now taking the debate with respect to gender and development, and to substantiate my arguments further, dear friends, I present to you the report that is the State of World's Forest 2022, a very important report that talks about forest pathways for green recovery and building inclusive, resilient, and sustainable economies. Let's understand, what does this report talk about? Moving forward, Bianca. This report, The State of the World's Forest 2022, was released by United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. It's a recent report of last year. Now, there are some startling facts from there, and that will just substantiate further with respect to our argument. Some of the facts: 420 million hectares of forests have been lost between 1990 and 2020. This due to deforestation. Half of world's gross domestic product depends moderately or highly on ecosystem services, and especially including those provided by forests. And most important, the world's population is projected to reach 9.7 billion people by 2050, which will increase competition from land. So with these important facts from the State of the World's Forest Report 2022, and again, it's available in the public domain by United Nations FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization. Moving forward, Bianca. Now, with the context that today, look, environment, ecology, it's an important factor. And of course, it requires systematic management. Bianca, let's go to the next facts. Today, we all know that BRICS, and this is what is an important, argument of our conference, is that we deliberate that how can BRICS actually offer opportunity with respect to translating problems towards solution. Now, we all know, taking the data again, today BRICS is on the path of expansion. When we look at in terms of GDP, in terms of population, in terms of coverage of global territory, BRICS may have differences. There may be internal differences, but nonetheless, when we look at non-traditional security, be it environment, ecology, climate change, natural resources, managing development better, the countries have a consensus with respect to democratizing the global governance voice. Bianca, moving forward. And with this, allow me to draw that how, with respect to, when I talk about reflecting towards 2018, where BRICS Environment MOU was signed. And therein, India pointed out something of a similar kind that we will discuss, Mission Life, adopting lifestyle changes to tackle climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution at all levels, including the individual level. And when I talk about adopting lifestyle changes, there is again a very important ethos of adopting sustainability, diversity, respecting inclusion, respecting the environment. And this is something what even the gender narrative talks about when we look at development and gender syndrome. So again, an important initiative that BRICS took in the year July 2018 was the BRICS Environment MOU. And again, India therein pointed out important initiatives by India when we look at Mission Life, adopting lifestyle changes, amongst others. And a gender narrative too talks about the same respect for environment, the same respect for diversity, inclusion, and sustainability. Moving forward, Bianca. Now, BRICS, we all know that it is on the verge of expansion. Of course, with the existing 5 members, BRICS grouping consisting of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Now, we may have, different agendas when we look at the geopolitics, but nonetheless, when we look at the concerns of non-traditional security, environment, ecology, fourth industrial revolution, the entire international political economy markets, there is this voice that let's factor in or move towards a democratic, world governance. And there have been significant steps by inviting 6 new countries to join, namely Iran, Saudi Arabia, UAE, West Asia, Egypt, Ethiopia, Argentina from Latin. And that is an important concern, opposition to global binary divide. World cannot be just seen in the form of West versus the non-West. And that towards a more equitable, inclusive global governance system. These facts I'm quoting from the 15th BRICS Summit, which was held in Johannesburg. Now, with this is where I think both what BRICS talks is talking about and what the gender narrative is talking about, that let's balance development and environment. So when we talk about technology partnerships, technology cannot be just a top-down approach. It has to be decentralized. It has to be something what India has talking about, say a globalization process which places people over profits. Then, of course, there has to be efforts to combat climate change, because climate or our environment cannot be just victimized because of excessive domination. And of course, talking about environmental justice, climate justice, fair, just, inclusive transition. And I think in all this, what BRICS has addressed and what our gender perspective addresses with respect to development and environment are somewhere at a similarity. Next slide, Bianca. So as you know that, BRICS MOU was signed in 2018, and of course, India with Mission Life, adopting lifestyle changes to tackle climate change. It has called upon BRICS nation for urgent, concrete climate action. And an important argument that I make, that a gender narrative, which is just not about women, but also about looking at the men, which is also about looking at different forms of marginalization, looking at intersectionalities of domination with the bigger aspect of lack of democracy, lack of, or too much emphasis towards capitalism, somewhere needs to be addressed. Moving forward, here recently, we all know that we had the New Delhi G20 summit, and at the G20 summit, the New Delhi Declaration talked about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, one Earth, one family, one future. That is G20's New Delhi Leaders Declaration. And in this declaration too, moving forward, Bianca, there was this focus on the very idea of gender equality from different perspectives. Namely, gender perspective can be useful for enhancing economic and social empowerment, the need to bridge the gender digital divide, driving gender inclusive climate action, securing women's food security, nutrition, and well-being. And when I talk about the New Delhi Leaders Declaration, and I dwell further on it, that's the last part, and then I'll, of course, next slide. G20's New Delhi Declaration talks about gender equality and empowering all women and girls. It reaffirms that gender equality is of fundamental importance, and it has a multiplier impact in implementing the Agenda 2030. So it encourages women-led development and remaining committed to enhancing women's full, effective, meaningful participation. It is about reaffirming our commitment to achieve the Brisbane goal to reduce gender gap in labor force, ensuring equal access to affordable, inclusive, equitable education, taking steps for more and meaningful participation, promoting investments in availability of social protection, committing to eliminate gender-based violence, promoting women's inclusion into formal financial system, eliminating gender stereotypes. Moving forward, Bianca, promoting, and hearing within all this, and it is talking about driving gender inclusive climate change. It is looking at women's food security, nutrition, that is acknowledging the disproportionate impact of climate change, biodiversity, desertification, pollution on women, and the accelerating climate change must have gender equality, supporting and increasing women's participation, partnership, decision-making, supporting gender-responsive and environment resilient solutions, amongst others. So this is from the G20 New Delhi Declaration. My last thing for today, the last slide, while I was doing the research for my session, I just got across this cover page of a training handbook that, and it, because I'm an artist myself, so I like to read a lot into pictures. Now look at it. Here, it's a women, and it is talking about gender and climate change. And it is just not about an energy transition. That is, we are looking at fuels, we are looking at alternative energy, we are looking at afforestation, we're looking at saving water, we're talking about alternatives for environment like a bicycle, we're talking about eco-friendly mechanisms, all of it. So a gender narrative, which is about balance, it is about inclusion, it is about sustainability, would indeed go a long way to factor development with the environment. It would indeed be very useful when we look at the theme of our session today, that is management of public, forests, management of national, national natural resources. So a gender perspective, which implies respect, which implies somewhere doing away with marginalization, which implies voicing out discrimination and voicing out domination, would go indeed a long way. My last one today, that is the last slide. As what Mahatma Gandhi ji said, that there is enough on earth for everybody's need. I repeat, there is enough on earth for everybody's need, but not enough for everybody's greed. Today, as the world is talking about reforming globalization, today, when global governance is talking about democratization, and BRICS is indeed playing an important role there, taking the global governance beyond the binary divide of West versus the other. Today, when the world is talking about a new narrative to guide the world, wherein India's idea of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, one earth, one family, the entire idea of reforming globalization, human-centric globalization, is indeed very much similar to what a gender approach talks about with respect to environment and with respect to development. We are not saying no to development. Development is very much needed, but what is essential, that is, it has to be balanced with respect to the important concerns of sustainability, equity, egalitarianism. That is very much essential in our interface with ecology and the environment thereof. Today, environment is very significant as an agenda to be factored in for any country. And BRICS nations indeed can play a huge role in ensuring better management of climate finance, better management of the trade-off when we look at the development issues of the developed world versus the developing world with respect to reforming global governance architecture of international organizations managing global trade. So this is not to say that one will pull off from the growth. Growth is needed, development is needed, but what is essential is to have a bit of sanity with respect to the management of the architecture of growth, development, environment, with the important concerns of equity, inclusion that gender narrative offers. So on that note, I end my case, and thank you very much, Bianca, for being such a kind support. Thank you so much to my very dear friend, Professor Cassio Zen. I extend my greetings and thanks from New Delhi, India. Thank you so much to my very dear speakers, Anjali, Renato, many, many thanks for all your support. And yes, to all our audience who will be watching us later and right now, and of course later on various social media platforms, the final take is that BRICS nations indeed have a very significant role to play in looking at the edifice of environment ecology, and indeed gender narrative is of huge use. It's just not about the women, it is equally about men too. So once again, everyone, many thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Emna. I think the lecture was super enlightening. It was a great presentation. Thank you so much for your time and for your kind explanations of the G20 New Delhi Leaders Declaration and also of the State of the World's Forest 2022 and all the kind regards regarding gender and how we can get this new approach on dealing with these new issues that the world unfortunately has to deal with, one of them being the climate. And now, passing on to our next speech, it will be from Mr. Renato. Let me get you all a little bit of an introduction about Mr. Renato. He is here with us today, and he has lectured at China EU Institute for Clean and Renewable Energy in 2012. He was a visiting researcher at the University of Oslo, Remix and Cicero in 2016, and at the Boston University also as a research associate through 2019 and 2018. Right now, he's a fellow at the Center for China and Globalization. He has a PhD and Master in Chinese Public Administration at the Hust University with a specialty in energy development policies and energy transition in China since 2018. Mr. Renato, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for your time, and it's yours. Thank you so much. You are muted. Sorry, Mr. Renato, we are not listening. Oh,
Yeah, that was a test. I was checking if I could be heard. First of all,
sorry.
good morning to Brazilians, good afternoon to Indians, good evening here in China, where I'm speaking from, Wuhan, city that's world known. And it's a great pleasure and an honor to be here. Thank you for having me. I would like to thank you, Bianca, for take care of us and facilitate this whole process organization of this panel. I'd like also to thank Ellen. Ellen is a good friend, Ellen Bueno. We met in the BRICS meetings in 2023. Now in South Africa, we started making a lot of exchange, and she told me a lot about the GBRICS, and I'm having the opportunity to be here today. Thank you to Vinicius from Ibrachina that's operating the system now, making this whole activity possible and go smooth and well. Thank you, Vinicius. And thank you for both of our panelists, Anjali Singh and Dr. Amna, for allowed us to have this exchange and this great talk. It was very rich here both. I think to start even dialoguing already with what both put it. I've been following a lot of research on the sense of diabetes and how poverty is connected to this sort of disease, and so give access to better food is also a way to improve. But I think you put in a very good way, Professor Anjali, and I think we could learn a lot. And the same hand, Dr. Amna, I think you show a lot of spaces where I can operate and dialogue and bring my knowledge and add to this whole discussion. And I hope I cannot take much longer. And what I'm bringing today as a contribution is actually something I've been studying for along this decade. I'm developing my research in policies for renewable energy for developing. So I'll explain how I got there. My contribution will be about how the agreement of Basel III and Solvency II has been adding to the process of financing projects. So I'll explain, I'll get there. So let's just try to catch up first with this whole discussion we're promoting, even with the gender discussion. Once I put myself here at the last in this panel full of women, which show already how these organizations are already contributing to this progress. First, my contribution comes from a chapter in a book that was recently launched in Brazil, which is a book from FGV, Fundação Getúlio Vargas, do Rio de Janeiro, from the group of study of China there, organized by Professor Evandro, Professor Daniel Veras, and Pedro Strahan. They launched a book which I have a chapter on. This book is called A China e a Iniciativa do Cinturão e Rota, China and the Belt and Road Initiative. the perception of Brazil, because it lacks opinion and lacks positions about Brazilians. Brazilians are very outside of this process, so we're trying to take the step on involving. But Belt and Road is something a bit younger. It's not like so new. It's coming to 10 years, and that's why we are launching the book to celebrate this 10 years. But my research comes following exactly like this BRICS wave. Back in 2008, when I graduated my law school, I was preparing to come to China in 2010, like when I came for my master's research. And then later I involved in eye care, researching how and support. I was actually supporting technology transfer of renewable energy from Europe to China. And this woke me up for the potential of how important was renewable energy for developing undeveloped nations, right? So we have a lot of nations that need energy. Energy is the oxygen of the economy. Without energy, what kind of IT can you have? What kind of industry can you have? So the pattern of energy you have will tell what kind of industry you can develop. So based on this learning, I started observing how could we finance, how could we support the development of renewable energy to avoid the impact of the global warming that was brought by these patterns of energy that we have, even hydrological sort of energy as we have, like big dams in Brazil, is still a big impact because you have a lot of deforestation, but less impactful, but has a very strong impact. So this woke me up for the potential of renewables. But renewables cannot work in a big, huge projects, long-term projects. They work with a smaller, time of projects. So when you're going to develop a renewable energy policy, you're going to work with the 5 to 3 years project. So it's much smaller. So researching about it, I faced a situation that was a big lesson for me. I faced how 2008 economical crisis impact the way banks were financing projects. So by coincidence, in all this wave and contribution and organization that the world was creating, we were having a economical crisis which was result of a corruption scheme, a whole deregulation of the market. So this process brought a new perspective of how banks and how insurance should support projects. And this way, this tendency that was there beginning on 2013, 2016, this period, was to make shorter projects, finance projects which be smaller and in a short term. And how did it happen? So for that, I have to explore a bit of the name of the spinal. We had the title of environment, management of the national forest, and public policies. So when we talk about environment, it comes quick to our mind, sustainability, how to make it sustainable. So there is this traditional way that we've been thinking about sustainable development, which works with economy, society, and environment. So trying to balance these three these three conditions, we can find the sustainable development. On the other hand, when we talk about management, we're talking about numbers. There's a strong school in China where whatever you have to manage when it comes to public policies, you gotta transform it in numbers. If it's big, how big? If it's small, how small? If it's many, how many? So numbers will facilitate for you to manage, right? So when it comes to the national forest, what kind of forest we are dealing, what kind of environment, and how's the global warming and the global change, the warming, the environmental changes affecting, transforming the forest too? Because there's a process that already started, which we cannot stop it. So how it is already affecting the environment, and how can we fight against it? How can we arrange process which can hold it up? And of course, public policies. Public policies is everything that we organize as government or private institutions that can organize society to take actions. So we believe that we are living in a time where smaller institutions are taking bigger roles. So we're making this transition where the time before our time, we believe that big institutions could make a world change, and we start thinking that like think global but act local. How to act local? You need local institutions. You need local actors to take action. Taking this in consideration, what I'm trying to bring about, it's how like economical process that was like that brought the whole economy of the world to its knees, that was 2008. Leave the transition, which coincide with the transition that the world needs to change its pattern and change its way to finance new infrastructure. New infrastructure always will be need. So need for energy is crucial for a world that's developing. The global south in the Paris 2015 was like the Paris Agreement. We were debating how we could develop as like global south or as developing nations. We were facing the contradiction where like the global north was telling everybody should hold on, everybody should stop and reduce its development. And the global south was making the resistance, saying like, no, this is not the way. You guys had your time, you developed, you reach wealth. Now we need to do it. We know this will be impactful, but we have to prepare how to make this transition. China is a proof that this is possible. China had like by 2015, one of the highest index of pollution in the world, one of the highest growths in the world, economically speaking, and now has been organizing and fighting global warming and doing a lot of policies. China today is the biggest user of renewable energies. And this was thankful to like a policy, which I care was one of the key instruments. When you talk about transferring technology, you're not talking about just transferring like the tool to be used, but the technology, how to be applied, to train technicians how to like take in place and how to make itself, how to adapt to the local place. Not everywhere the solar panels will have the same efficiency. Not everywhere the wind turbines will work the same way. So every place has its potential, has its conditions. So to do such a technology transfer, we need to, like in case of the case I lead, we need 3 steps. We need a step where we organize the development of marketing. The second step, the development of like law, the legal system, the political system, and finally the technology transfer, how the technicians will train a group of specialists that will understand the potential of local areas. So this is how China started to develop and became the biggest user of renewable energy, reducing its pollution and contribution to the global warming. So facing this, like understanding this process, what I want to bring is like the global crisis, the 2008 economic crisis, was caused by corruption, was caused by deregulation of the market. And this, in fact, the world economy, create an untrust system where financing projects became something to be afraid of, because you never knew who was in the other, both sides actually. So the banks, so the insurance, and even like who was asking for this. So a new regulation was demanded. So the Basel, which is a committee holding like Switzerland, responsible for organizing directives for banks, he applied a change in its proposal. Also the sovereignty, like too, which is like an institution that controls the insurances in Europe, both propose a change. And this change, along these years, analyzing, I understood that there's a tripod, like there's a 3 legs like system that basically they organize in a direction to make investment in whatever infrastructure for development more sustainable, more like equitable, like more secure. So what they work in these tripods was basically a quantitative, a qualitative, and a public access for the information. So public access to the information make like whoever is making investment for whatever project it is public and accessible. So like this is a directive that they pointed. When it comes to quantitative and qualitative, they establish conditions where projects cannot be too big and the time cannot be too long. So these reshape the way to lend money for investment. So there is a strong recommendation for both institutions to tell the institutions, the financial institutions, to look for projects and finance and support projects and work with projects, train people to work with projects in a short lens. So 2 to 3 years is being like one of the best like indicatives. And one or not, this is like the lens of a good project of construction of a renewable energy. When you talk about like solar panels, when you talk about wind turbines, or smaller dams, which are less impactful. So those projects in the short term can work much better because there is a contract of like a lower risk. There is a working conditions for a community, which the time is predictable and livable. Because before, imagine, like we're going to construct a big dam. We'll talk about 10 years project. We don't know who is starting. We don't know who is ending. We don't know how the process is going to be deal along 10 years. So when you reduce the length, when you reduce the time, everything starts to gain more human perspective, a more accessible, a more reasonable way to be managed. So these conditions that the world crisis taught the world became a good condition and a coincidence position that helped the world to also adapt to the global warming. So this marriage was perfect for like financing structures. So if you look big institutions like the Belt and Road Initiative Bank, AIIB, or like the Silk Road Fund, or even if you look NDB, they are looking for projects in a lower lens for infrastructure, for exactly to reduce the risk. So this indicative from Basel III and Solvens II, they are both like in this concern, the concern to make economy sustainable and make the environment less impactful with the transformation that like the development needs. So bringing this to the forest, like back in 2016, I support a project in deep forest, like with the Boston University. We were giving a support to ISA, Institute of Social Ambiental, like from Brazil. They are located in São Paulo City. So they have a base in the Amazon forest, like São Gabriel da Cachoeira, which is the what we call the dog's head, or like a cabeça do cachorro. It's north part of the Amazon border with Venezuela, where is the highest mountain in Brazil, the Peak of Neblina, which is a tourist attraction that's been for ages closed. So that region, it's very isolated. It has a strong, like there's many local natives, but a specific native which is called Yanomami. The Yanomami people in their region is like the biggest group, and they have been suffering a lot with the mining, illegal mining in the area which is rich in diamonds, gold, and also niobio and some other minerals. So these became these kind of jobs, for more that's illegal, for more that's harmful to the environment. It became access for like locals to have like money to access food or tools that they wouldn't have, like a fan or like a refrigerator or an engine to create electricity. So all those things are like crucial for like to adapt their conditions of life to what they believe they need. So to improve their life conditions, right? So they have been adopting this kind of bad jobs, which like has no like any conditions of work, like which is like bring them to death and like contamination of environment, but give them access to money. So to counterparties, to offer like a condition, a way out, is with other institutions as SMBio or like FUNAI, they were organizing and proposing an ecotourism for the region, which was organizing from this what would they call, like tribe, like or village of these natives. They were organizing a tour to the Peak of Neblina, organized by the local natives, and this project was going well. They were having because like once they can organize this ecotourism, they can have another source of economy. And this way, they don't need to work in the mining, which is risky, and like many of them die from it or contaminate their own water and fish. So this project was taking over, like was taking off, was like really developing. But for the lack of conditions of financing, because like it's a short-term project, like usually 2 to 3 years, or like it's also a type of like of society which is like excluded for the financial system. So it was hard to finance them. And with the change of the last government, well, like this was back in 2016, we had there like 2018, this dark age of the environment in Brazil. With this change of government, this whole project collapsed and like went quiet and it stopped it. So this is a project that can be retaken. And the way to finance now, it's giving conditions, and like even the government we have right now can support like a process to develop this type of project. So I think this is an example how like smaller projects can create a big impact, because we're talking about the center of the forest, the center of the Amazon forest, the deepest part. So if there's condition to support access to electricity without engines, without gasoline, with the whole environment there, like with the renewable energies, can be a process of taking them out of like energy poverty. Also, like financing them, like access to develop the tourism, they can push away this very bad labor conditions that like mining usually put to them. So that's to say, like, and that's to show how the International Atomic Energy Agency has been telling us by 2035, the world needs around $53 trillion to invest in energy so it can lift us up and avoid any global warming. And when we talk about this 53 trillion, we're talking about renewable energy, which if was a normal energy pattern, it would be 10% smaller. So there is a 10% increase on this project, like in this whole need of like financing. But it's a project that will finance a new condition of life, a condition of life which will be in balance with the environment, will be less polluted, like it will be a change way, a way that we've been looking for. So in this whole like analysis that I bring it to you here today, what I'm looking for is like to point how like financial institutions are adapting and bringing conditions to finance it, like not just the discussion, but conditions to make the change. And the change now is to think like in a short term, is to think smaller, and to think in ways that really affect the smaller communities and change reality. I think like the best now will be to open for discussion. I thank again, like all of you for the opportunity of this debate, and thank you again. I pass the word to Bianca.
Thank you so much, Mr. Renato. It was a great speech, a really way of thinking, maybe taking short steps in order to be able to take bigger steps in the future. I think that is a really good way of thinking, right? And it was something I hadn't thought about or heard yet, but I think it's something that everybody that is here in this discussion today would really like to study more now from your perspective. And unfortunately, guys, I would like to end now this our panel due to our time. I have talked with our group, and we will have our other panel now at 10:30. We still have 7 minutes, so if any of our speakers would like to make a final statements or something like that to give recommendations, now is the time. If we don't have that, it's okay. Also, I will thank our supporters. So the floor is yours again. If Mrs. Anjali or Dr. Emna or Mr. Renato would like to say something for our finalization, now is the time. If not, it's okay also. I will just wait a few seconds to see if we have any other. Dr. Emna will speak.
Yeah, actually, once again, I'd like to really thank everyone at the, BRICS study group at the University of Sao Paulo. It's very interesting very good indeed how you actually come up with BRICS conference, and it's always a delight to be out there learning, to learn further. And trust me, the presentations were really nice, especially Anjali's presentation. It was like very important guidance that how do we really need to, have the lifestyle changes. And that's a very important part of the alternative medicines that we are thinking on. And of course, Renato's entire perspective on how do we actually make it happen, to actually, brainstorm us that look, how do we really manage environment and development better. So once again, many thanks to our dear friend, Professor Cassio, Bianca, everyone at the University of Sao Paulo BRICS Study Group. Thank you so much, everyone. Trust me, it's indeed great to be always there, and all our good wishes that you guys keep doing great. All good wishes to all the awesome participants. I must congratulate you because I was looking at the schedule of lectures that you have lined up till 10th November or 9th November, if I'm not wrong. Kudos. Congratulations. Keep doing great, and more power to learning, to knowledge, to BRICS, to all good things. Thank you. Heartfelt thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Amna. It was a pleasure having you again. We heard really good things about you, and we hope to see you next year also.
Well, once again, thank you again, and like, thank for everything. Yeah, sorry, please.
I froze.
Yeah. So if time allows, if we can,
sorry, guys, I think.
Because this festive season here in India is Deepavali time, so have to rush for a few shopping. And Anjali and Renato and Bianca, everyone, greetings. We have the festival time Deepavali here. Greetings of Deepavali to everyone. Please keep doing great. Stay happy, keep learning. All good wishes here. And once again, to all our students, our researchers, wonderful distinguished participants, greetings and many thanks, everyone. So with the permission of Bianca, our moderator, shall I log out?
Yes,
Thank you.
You may log out. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, guys. I think I froze at the
No, you're back.
the end of. I'm back. Thank God. I was just saying, if Mrs. Anjali or Mr. Renato, if you would like to say final considerations, the floor is also yours. Thank you so much. If not, it's okay. Also, I can read our comment section.
I just I would like to make some considerations, but I think Anjali she spoke before me, so she should if she feels.
No, you can say it's a thank you from my side. Thanks to all of you. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Anjali. It was a great speech. You can speak now. Sorry, Mr. Renato.
Yeah, no, it's all right. Yeah, I think that's just again, thank you for coordinate everything. Vinicius for organize the whole video, for Ellen for open this opportunity for me. It's a big chance for me to open years of research, a perspective that I've been learning along this decade. To talk about the chapter in the book too, and talk about this book that we're launching from FGV, and it's just congratulations for the organization of BRICS. I think this is also this group of BRICS in USP has a great potential, has a good idea and a great view, because this is a perspective that we are part. It's the global South are rearranging the world, and take the lead of this change that we must need, and that's again what I was saying, we're going through economical change, a political change, environmental change. So there's a lot of crises and adaptations we have to adapt. So groups like this and initiatives like this debate of today is crucial for us to think and rearrange and prepare ourselves in the next generations to cope with the potential we have to realize for this new world to rise. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, everybody. It was a great speech of everyone, the great panel, a great mix of ideas and new communications, new ways of viewing things. We already have a view, but not the traditional one. And for our finalization, I would just read a little bit of the comments for you. Everybody said it was a wonderful lecture and a very interesting approach about the environment, gender, and renewable energy. And also we had one of our participants says that Mr. Renato is one of the biggest specialists in the relations of Brazil and China right now. So thank you so much for participating again. And also, thank you, Mrs. Anjali. It was a great approach of new methods of trying to cope with the reality we already have with diabetes mellitus here in Brazil also. And now, just to finalize, I would like to thank again our sponsors for the BRICS, Jornada dos BRICS, the BRICS journey, and they are Ibra China, which is who is hosting us today, Miguel Neto Advogados, and our supporters, which is LIDE China, FGS, which is the Foundation for Global Studies, and SABYA. SABYA, I don't know if I'm pronouncing correctly.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for our support. And I'm introducing now our next panel, which will be now 10:30, and it is about international humanitarian and criminal law. And it's going to talk about the main aspects of this panel. Is going to be the discussion of the role of BRICS countries in humanitarian international criminal law. And if you like to see, you can see in our website. Thank you so much, Mr. Renato. Thank you so much, Anjali. We are finishing now for now. Thank you so much. You are all welcome. You can log out if
I'm
you would like.
impressed.
Thank you.
Yeah, like LIDE China, Instituto Ibra China, they all like great institutions that has important role in the relation between China and Brazil. It's really like institutions that have been making a difference in this relation.
They help
Congratulations.
us each year. Thank you so much for the support again. And thank you so much for your time. Bye bye, everybody. Have a
Bye.
great week.
Have a good